Lesson 15 is on powers and roots. So powers are exponents, so if I have 5 squared, the 2 up there is my power, or if I have a square root of 25, that's the root. Number 1, at the baseball game, 40% of the fans joined in singing the national anthem, while the rest listened quietly. If there were 25,000 fans in the stadium, how many joined in singing? So 40%, we could do as a fraction 40 out of 100. And when they say 40% of 25,000 fans, we multiply. So 40%, remember percent is the number over 100. That's what percent means. Whoops. So we'll take 25,000 times 40 over 100. That means I'm going to take 25,000 times 40 divided by 100. And I'll just do the divided by 100 in my head. That means I'm going to take off the zeros of the 25,000, so I just have 250. And then 250 times 40, well, 25 times 4 is 100. And then I have 2 zeros after that. So 10,000 fans sang the national anthem. A gallon of milk contains 128 ounces. How many 8-ounce cups can be filled with a gallon of milk? So 128 ounces over 1, and then times 1 cup per 8 ounces. I put ounces on the bottom because I want it to cancel the ounces up there and be left with cups. So what that says is I'm dividing 128 by 8. 8 goes into 12 once. 1 times 8 is 8. 12 minus 8 is 4. Bring the 8 down. 8 goes into 48. 6 times 8 is 48. 48 minus 48 is 0. So we have 16 cups. Jackie played the drums in the band. If he beat the drum at a rate of 110 beats per minute, how many beats would he play in 4.5 minutes? So 110 beats per 1 minute. And then I'm going to multiply that. I want to cancel out minutes, so the minutes will go up here. And I could write it as 4.5, but it's easier in my brain if I convert that to the decimal 4.5. They mean the same thing, so you can do them either way. So 110 times 4.5, well, 100 times 4.5 would be 450, and then 10 times 4.5 would be 45. It would be 45. So 450 and 45 is 495. Simplify, remember, means to find the answer. So 4 inches cubed means 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. And 16 times 4 is 64. And then we have units. And the units also get cubed. So 64 inches cubed is the answer. Number 5 is asking the question, what number times itself 3 times equals 1? So what number times itself 3 times because it's the cubed root equals the number underneath 1? Well, 1 times 1 times 1 is equal to 1, so our answer is 1. Because 1 cubed equals 1. In number 6, you could do this two different ways. One way would be to actually square the 8, and then you'd have the square root of 64, and you'd ask what number times itself 2 times gives me 64, and that would be 8. The other thing to recognize is that squared and square root are opposites. They cancel each other out, so that you're only left with the 8. Express with exponents. What that means is if you have multiple of a number or a letter, use an exponent instead. So I have multiple x's. I have 3 of them to be exact. So it's a cubed, or a 3 in the exponent. I have 1 m, so that stays. And then I have 2 r's, so r squared. Solve by inspection means think about the situation and see if you can figure out what number the variable must be. So x divided by 4 equals 12. What that means is that a number divided by 4 gives me 12. And the number that when I divide it by 4 gives me 12 is 48. And to check it, I do 48 divided by 4. Well, 4, 8, 12. 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, 44, 48. That is 12. 2 times x plus 5 equals 5. Well, if I'm adding a number onto 5 and it still equals 5, what that tells me is this number here has to equal 0. So our new problem turns into 2x equals 0. Well, to multiply 2 by something and end up with 0, that something has to be 0. So to double check, we'd do 2 times 0 plus 5. 2 times 0 is 0 plus 5 is 5. 9 minus m equals 7. So 9 minus a number gives me 7. So that number is 2. 9 minus 2 is equal to 7. That's true. 4 over 5 equals, or minus 1 over 2. Remember, when you're adding or subtracting fractions, you need to have a common denominator. And to do that, we can list the multiples of each number. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 5, 10. Well, 10's in common, so that's going to be my common factor. So I'm going to have 4/5 over something over 10. To get 4/5 to be over 10, we would multiply by 2. So we have to multiply the 4 by 2 as well. So that gives me 8. So 4/5 is the same thing as 8/10. And then 1/2, we have put something over 10. To go from 2 to 10, I multiply by 5. So I also have to multiply the 1 by 5. That gives me 5. So I have 5/10. So now the problem is 8/10 minus 5/10 equals, when I subtract fractions, I subtract the numerators, the top number. 8 minus 5 is 3. And I keep the bottom number the same, 10. So my answer is 3/10. In number 12, I'm adding mixed numbers. And since I'm adding, I can just add the whole numbers first and ignore them after that. So I have 1 plus 1 is 2. And then I have 1/4 and 1/3. So the 1/4 and the 1/3 I still need to get a common denominator for. So again, I can do 3, 6, 9, 12, and then I could do 4, 8, 12. They both have 12 as a multiple, so I'll use that. So 1/4. To go from 4 to 12, I multiply by 3. So 1 times 3 is 3, so 1/4 is 3/12. To go from 1/3 to 12, I multiply the 3 by 4, so I have to multiply the 1 by 4, which is 4/12, so 1/3 is 4/12. So 1/4 plus 1/3 turns into 3/12 plus 4/12. Again, same thing with subtracting. You add the numerators and keep the bottom the same, so 7/12. And then we still have the 2 whole, so your final answer is 2. Oops, I don't want that color. That's confusing. 2 and 7/12. Compare and justify your answer with the property of addition. So, all this is the same numbers. I have 1/3 here, 1/3 here, 1/2 here, 1/2 here, 2/3 here, 2/3 here. So they're the same numbers being added together, which means they're equal. They're just in a different order. And order is by the commutative property, which says that things are equal if you're just adding them together. So commutative property of addition. Arrange in order from least to greatest. So the least will be the most negative number, which is -2. And then we have another negative number, -1.5. And then the smallest positive number, we have 1/3 and 0.3. Remember, 1/3 is just a fraction you should know. It is the fraction 0.333 repeating, which says since it has a 3 here and this has nothing here, it's bigger than 0.3, so 0.3 is next smallest. Oops, and then 1/3. And then 3. Find AC when A is 1 and C is 9, or for AC. So 4 times A is 1, C is 9. So 4 times 1 is 4, times 9 is 36. What is the difference between the sum of 1/2 and 10 and the product of 1/2 and 10? So the difference between means I'm going to have two things being subtracted. So the first thing it says is the sum of 1/2 and 10. Sum means add them. And then the product of 1/2 and 10 is the second one. Product means multiply. So then 1/2 plus 10 is 10.5. And then 1/2 times 10 is half of 10, which is 5. And we could do this several different ways. I'm just going to subtract the whole numbers. So 10 minus 5 is 5. And then we still have the half left over. So the difference between the sum of 1/2 and 10 and the product of 1/2 and 10 is 5.5. For y equals 1/3 x plus 2, find y when x is 6. That means plug it in. So y equals 1/3 of 6 plus 2. Well, 1/3 of 6 means 6 divided by 3, so that's 2. Plus 2 is 4. So y is 4. How much money is 20% of $65? So The easiest thing to do with percents is to break them down into tens or ones. So I'm going to say that 20% is 2 times 10%. So first I'm going to figure out what 10% of 65 is. So I have $65. To figure out 10%, I move the decimal place one place to the left. So 10% of 65 is $6.50. And since I'm looking for 20%, then I'm going to multiply that by 2. Well, 650 and 650, 6 and 6 is 12, and 50 and 50 is $1. So 650 and 650 is $13. Arrange these fractions in order from least to greatest. So they are all less than a half, so that technique's not going to work. The next technique would be to draw them out. I'm not super good at drawing fifths though. And then the last one is to recognize what they are as decimals. So 1/4 is one that you should just know, 0.25. 2/5 is another one you should just know, or 0.4, because it would be 4/10. And then 3/8 is a little bit trickier. This was on the last homework assignment. So we have 3 divided by 8. We can't do 8 into 3, so we add a decimal point and a 0. That doesn't change the 3 at all. Whoops. So we put the decimal point up there. So now the question is, how many times does 8 go into 30? It goes into 30 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. 30 minus 24 is 6. We add another 0 and bring it down. How many times does 8 go into 60? Is 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. Subtract those. 60 minus 56 is 4. Bring another 0 down. How many times does 8 go into 40? That's 5 times. So 3/8 as a decimal is 0.375. So now that I see those as decimals, I can see that it's going to be 1/4 is the least, and then 3/8, and then 2/5. Write the prime factorization of 630 using exponents. So, I'm going to move this one just a bit over. And we're going to do the factor tree for 630, because that's how we find prime factorization. So 2 numbers that multiply to give me 630, well, 63 and 10 must. And then 2 numbers that multiply to give me 63 are 7 and 9. 2 numbers that multiply to give me 10 are 2 and 5. Of those 4 numbers I have right now, 7, 2, and 5 are already prime. And the factors for 9 are 3 and 3. So the prime factorization would be 2 times 3 times 3 times 5 times 7. So 2 times 3 is 6, times 3 is 18. And then 18 times 5 would be 90, and then 90 times 7 would be 63. So that works. Now they want us to do it using exponents though. So anytime we have multiple of the same number, we're going to use an exponent, which only applies to the 3's. So we will have 2 times 3 squared, since there's 2 of them, times 5 times 7. A formula for the area of a square is A equals S squared, so the side length squared. Find A when S is 15. So A equals 15 squared. Well, 15 times 10 would be 150, and then I'd need 15 times 5. So 15 times 5 is 75. So 150 plus 75 is 225. And then the area is the units squared. If the subtrahend is 12 and the difference is 12, what is the minuend? So in a subtraction or difference equation, you have the minuend minus the subtrahend equals the difference. So now we just fill in those blank spots. So there's some number minus 12 and it equals 12. So what is this number right here? 24. 24 minus 12 gives me 12. If each side of a square is 7.5 inches, what is the perimeter of the square? So I have 4 times 7, which is 28. And then I have 4 halves. So 2 halves is 1, and then 2 more halves is another 1. So we have 30, and since it's perimeter, we keep the units the same. Compare 0.625 and 3/5. Well, the easiest way to do that is to take the 3/5 and turn it into a decimal. 3/5 is just a decimal you should know. It's 0.6, and since 0.6 would be 0.60, and 0 is less than 2, other way, 0.625 is greater than 3/5. What is the median number of bears in the zoos in the state if the zoos contain 11 bears, 3 bears, 18 bears, 2 bears, and 5 bears? So for median, we put them in order from smallest to biggest. So 2, 3, 5, 11, 18, and then we find the middle number. So 2 and 18, 3 and 11 get crossed out, so 5 bears is the median number. Write 0.07 as a fraction, then name both numbers. Well, 0.07 ends in the tenths, hundredths spot, so there are 7 1/100ths as a fraction, and I just said it, the name for it is 7. I'll write it out. Hundredths. Explain why the following statement is false. Every whole number is positive. Well, whole numbers start with 0 and then they go forward positive. So everything but 0 is positive for whole numbers, but 0 is a whole number, but it is not considered positive. It's neither positive nor negative. Find the perimeters. At first glance, it might look like this problem doesn't have enough information, but really the distance from here to here, even though we don't know individually how long each of these things are, is still 10 because it's 10 across here. So this side total with each jog here and here is 10. The only thing that we would need to know is how long this side is, which we know because we have 4 here and 5 here, which means this must be 1. So to find the perimeter, we do 10 plus 5 plus 10 for this whole side, plus 1 for that little blip, plus 4. So 10 and 10 is 20, 25, 30 centimeters. And then we have 3 plus 7 plus 5. 3 and 7 is 10, plus 5 is 15 inches. For perimeter, you just take the units they show you. And the last problem, a 15-foot square room is going to be carpeted. Use A equals S squared to find the number of square feet of carpet that is needed. Well, this is exactly like the problem that we had back here where it says find the formula if you have 15 centimeters. In this case, we have 15 feet. So we take 15 squared, which we already found out is 225. So 15 feet squared is 225 feet squared.